All right, so we spent quite a long time working on this problem where we do equation operations to simplify this system of equations. In this shorter video, I want to show you how to use Excel to do this in a much simpler way. So I have cut and pasted this system of equations that I did before, and then I wrote out the coefficients of these equations in a table down here. So for instance, this first equation is 1x1 minus 2x2 plus x3 equals 0. So that's 1 minus 2, 1, 0. Those are the coefficients here. I could write this here. Let's see if I can get this. This is the x1 row, this is the x2 column, this is the x3 column, and then this is the right-hand side. All right, let's make this a little bigger so you can see what I'm doing. All right, now, so I've done all of these equations. This one should be 0, 2, minus 8, 8. You can check that I've put all the equations correctly here. Now I want to do the operations one by one. 4r1 plus r3. All right, so how am I going to do that? Well, the first two equations are the same. So I'm going to have a copy of this table, but the numbers are going to change, but the first two rows are going to be the same. So I can just link this cell to the value of this cell. This is going to be the same value as over here. And also all of these cells here are going to have the same values as the cells over here because the first two equations don't change. So I can take this and I can fill down like this, and then I can fill right like this. And you can verify that the values here are correct. The value in the cell is equaling the value in the cell over here. Right. Now, for the last row, what I want to do is take 4r1 plus r3. Now, you remember in my previous video, I did this variable by variable. So 4r1 plus r3 here is going to be the 4 times this x1 coefficient plus this x1 coefficient in the third row. So this is going to be equal to 4 times this one plus this one. Now the nice thing is that this formula here works for every cell in this row. So I just move this over like this, and I have my last row. Right? So I finished my first row operation here. Let's try another one. Next one is going to be 3 halves times r2 plus r3. All right, now as we said before, this is only going to change the third row. So my first two rows are going to be the same. Well, let me do the same thing. I'm going to do my linking here. That value is going to be the same, the top left corner. I can fill this down, and I can fill this over 4 columns. You can see the first two rows are the same. Now this last one, I'm going to have 3 halves times r2 plus r3. So I can write this 3 over 2 times r2. Where's r2? r2 is here. Plus r3 is here. That's my formula. And then I'm going to fill this to the right. All right. And you can see I have a result here. So let's go, and it looks like I can shrink these columns a little bit because I don't need to have them so big. So I'm going to select these columns here and shrink them. And I think I'll do the same thing with this. I don't need those to be so big. I'm going to shrink those two. And I'll shrink these two. Okay, good. All right, now what's my next one? My next one is going to be 1/2 R2. So when I type this formula, before I type the 1, I type a space so that Excel doesn't think it's a formula. So and I can do like this. I can do 1/2 R2. Now let's just think about the same thing. Here the R1 is going to be the same, so I can say the first one here is this has the same value. So this row, this column here is going, I'm sorry, this row here is going to be the same as the row there. Or there we go. And then this last row is also going to be the same as the last row here. And let's go and copy that over. Now this one is going to be 1/2 times R2. So I can write that equals 1/2 times R2 and copy that over. All right. So that gives me my next one, and let's shrink this one too. All right. So now I can continue here. I guess I can do these quickly. The next one, let me add a column before this. This next one is going to be what? I finished 1/2 R2. This is going to be 4R3. And then it's plus R2. All right, now the, whoops, forgot the capital. So here I'm going to have, sorry, the R1 is going to stay the same. So here I'm going to have R1 is the same. I can fill this over. Now 4R3 plus R2 is changing the R2 row. So the R3 row stays the same. And I can fill this one over. Now it's only the R2 row that changes. So this is going to be equal to 4 times R3. So I have 4 times, and then R3 is here. And I have plus R2, which is this one. And then I can fill this over. Okay, there we go. All right, let's do the next one. Next one is going to be minus R3 plus R1. Okay. And this is going to change the R1 row, so the R2 row and the R3 row remain the same. So this, I can just put this value here. The R2 row and the R3 row remain the same, so I can fill down and over. The R1 row changes, so this is going to be equal to minus R3 plus R1. Fill this over like this. And then I have one more, I think it's going to be 2R2 plus R1. 2R2, whoops, 2R2 plus R1. And that's going to be, that's also going to change R1, so R2 and R3 remain the same. So here I can type equals 0 here. And I can fill this down and over. And then the R1 gives me 2R2 plus R1, so that's going to be equal to 2 times R2. R2 is right here. Looks like I have an extra equal sign there. And then I do plus R1. Oh, sorry, plus R1. R1 is up here. Right. And, oops, I didn't do that right. I'm using the old shortcuts, which may not work anymore. All right, now notice the form I have here. If you think about what this means, this is the, I have these columns here, which I can still do. I can copy this and move this here. What this signifies is, this first equation signifies x1 equals 29, x2 equals 16, x3 equals 3. So this tells me, whoops, sorry, x1 equals 29, x2 equals 16. and x3 equals 3. All right, now I can do the check as we did before. Okay. So how is this going to check? Well, it should be that 1 times 29 plus minus 2 times 16 plus 1 times 3 should be equal to 0. Now, we can do that just by hand doing each one separately, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these and move these down. And these are the coefficients, and these are the variables. And these are the values. The values, I'm going to copy them 29, 16, and 3. Right. Now, so this is the first equation. Now, the first equation is going to be 29 times 1, 29 times 1 plus 16 times minus 2 plus 3 times 1. All right, that's the first equation, and the result should be the right-hand side. So here I'm going to, why don't I introduce another blank line here. I'll call this x1, x2, and x3. And then here we'll have the right-hand side. All right, so the right-hand side here would be, here we'd have the 0 here. And then we'd also have the other 2, so I need to pull that down. All right, now, so as I said, the first equation is going to be this times this, plus this times this, plus this times this. So it's going to be equal to, how am I going to do this? There's a Excel function called sum product, where I can do that automatically. So I can say sum product. It's going to take these 3 and take the product with these 3. And the result should be the right-hand side. And it is. Now the second equation will simply be the sum product of these 3 coefficients with the values. And that should equal to the second constant, which it is. Then we have the third equation, and then that's going to be equal to the sum product of these 3 coefficients with the values of the variable. And I get minus 9. So you can see that these 3 values and these 3 values agree. Now, there are a number of ways to verify the equations. There's a more elegant way than I've shown that uses fixed reference. You could just also compute the equations term by term. But the point is that you can check the equations using Excel. Right? So the Excel method is an alternative way, probably a faster way, to do the same computation. And I invite you to do that. I invite you to do that during the quiz. I think you should try to use software tools as much as possible. All right, so here's how it's laid out, and I will save this also for you.